Hey guys, welcome to Wednesday Night Oasis for June 21st. June 21st. Hey, the month is about over. July is going to be here right before you know it, and next thing you know, we'll be singing Happy New Year and all that kinds of stuff. So, hey, we are starting a new message classic series from. Now, get a load of this. This was during a time when COVID was in and we were not allowed to go into the building that we meet at church. So this message is from a covered area in a park that because we were going to meet even though we couldn't get together. So out in the building. So we met outdoors. So you're going to see some sun, a little hard to see me maybe, but the message came in okay, everything is good, and so this message tonight is the part one of a message series, and I think it's like 3 parts that we'll be looking at over the next 3 weeks, but it is about words matter. Your words matter, the things you say matter. You know, years ago when I was a kid, they had this phrase or saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words would never hurt me. And that guy was kind of a nut, I think, because whoever thought of that, they don't understand that there are people who have been hurt by words, and the words that were spoken to them were 30, 40, 50 or more years ago. And so it still hurts them now. You know, you break a bone and whatever, how many weeks it takes, you're better. But you can't take back sometimes bad words, bad things that you say, hurtful words. So although we all do it, we all have our moments of weakness. I think this message series you're going to find quite interesting and really relevant today, even though it was from 5 years ago, maybe 5 years ago or so. So I hope you get something out of this tonight. Thanks for watching us. After this series, I think we're going to go into some new stuff that I'm just going to do with you right here online. And I'm working on what that's going to look like, what it might be. I think we're going to go in and study some books of the Bible or do some things like that. So anyway, don't miss Sunday. We're talking about the blood of Jesus, the blood of Jesus, the power in the blood. It's going to be good. You be with us. Talk to you soon. Love you guys. Have a great week.
When I lose my way and I forget my name, remind me who I am. In the mirror all I see is who I don't want to be. Remind me who I am. In the loneliest places, when I can't remember what grace is. Tell me remind me who I am. If I'm your beloved, can you help me believe it? Tell me once again who I am to you, who I am to you. Whoa. Tell me lest I forget who I am to you, that I belong to you, to you. I'm the one you love. I'm the one you love. That will be enough. I'm the one you love. Tell me once again who I am to you, who I am to you. Tell me lest I forget who I am to you, that I belong to you. Whoa. Tell me once again who I am to you, who I am to you. Tell me lest I forget who I am to you, that I belong to you, to you, to you.
Hey, open your Bibles to the Old Testament, to 1 Samuel. 1 Samuel chapter 1. Today we are starting a brand new series, The name of the series is titled Words Matter. Words Matter. And that's really true, isn't it? If you think about it, the words we speak have the ability to transform lives. It has the ability to change the course of history. It has the ability to affect people. And today, as we start this series, we're going to talk about words matter in the family. We're going to talk about in the family. Now, I understand that many of the people who are hearing this message, some of you who are at home, say, my family has grown. They're all grown up already. They're out of the house. But here's the truth, that the message from today is going to be directed towards young people that we come across in our lives. And it's talking about our grandkids. It's talking about children. It's talking about nephews and nieces and all who come to the church that are younger, and everyone who you come in contact with. Because here's the deal. When it comes to families, we have the ability through our words to help families to thrive or to help them to just get by. And I love thriving families, don't you? I love it when I see people who are moving forward and not barely surviving. Over the years, I've had some conversations with people that were really kind of strange. And I don't mean strange like they were really bad. I mean strange in that I'm sorry that we even have to have this discussion. It's that kind of discussion. See, I spoke to a young woman one time who told me that her mom said to her in a grocery store, I wish you were never born. Can you imagine someone saying that to you? She was telling me this story, and it happened 20 years earlier. She was still thinking about something that her mom said to her 20 years prior. The love of a mom and a daughter. I wish you were never born. A grown man once told me that a common theme in his life growing up was that he can't do anything right, and that he was never going to amount to anything. You see, our words have the tremendous ability to change lives and change the course of history. So often, we know the old phrase, and I've talked about this before, sticks and stones may break your bones, but words would never hurt me, right? And the truth of the matter is that words are much worse than sticks and stones because they last forever. They stay with us sometimes forever. I spoke to a woman one time whose father passed away, and I was doing his funeral. And she met with me before time, and she says, you know, Pastor, I have to ask you a question. My dad never told me he loved me. He must have loved me, right? Can you imagine that? Not ever knowing. Friends, if any of this, what I'm saying, is touching you today, I want to encourage you to pick up a phone and call somebody, or tell somebody you love them that you love. Because you don't want to be like this woman whose father is now gone, asking, my father loved me, didn't he? He never told me that. I was at a store one day with Shirley, and a woman was dragging a little 2-year-old on the floor. And as the 2-year-old was kicking and screaming, and she said, you know, she says, you're such a brat. You're like your father. You're going to be just like him. And I'm thinking about that, and I'm watching this, and I wanted to just go over and slap her. You know what I mean? You ever get in those moods? Like, it's like, I'm going to get involved in this, and it's none of my business. So what do? I preach on the television, so hopefully she's watching. Don't say that to your kids. See, this morning, whether you're a mom or a dad, an uncle, a coach, a school teacher, a grandparent, if you have kids that live next door, whatever your situation is, you have the ability to either positively affect someone's life or negatively affect someone's life by the words that you speak. So even if you don't have young people at home, today we're going to be looking at a story of a man named Eli. He was a priest, has 2 sons. Now, Eli was a very good man. He was a great man. He wasn't a great priest. He didn't know how to handle the things of life. And so Eli, in our story, as we're getting ready to begin with this, meets a woman whose name is Hannah. Now, Hannah, for several years, tried to have children and was never able to have children. And she tried and tried and tried, and she found herself in this place in her life, this season in her life, where she was discouraged. Ever have those discouraging times in your life? She was in this discouraging place. And every year she would go with her husband to the temple, and she would pray. Not pray, you know, like you and I pray for our meals, but I'm talking about fervently praying. I'm talking about crying out to God. And this was one time when she was there, and she was crying out to the Lord, and she is saying, now she's in this temple in a place called Shiloh, and she's there, and she's saying, Lord, if you just bring me, if you just give me this child, I will give him to the Lord. I'll give him to you. She was really wanting this child. Well, Eli was listening. He was watching and he was listening. And Eli approached the lady, and he sends her home. He sends her home, and he wants her to know everything is going to be okay. Be in peace. Let's look at 1 Samuel 1, verse 11. Here's how this plays out. 1 Samuel 1, verse 11. She made a vow, saying, Lord Almighty, if you will only look on your servant's misery and remember me, and not forget your servant, but give her a son, then I will give him to the Lord for all the day of his life. For all the days of his life. So Eli says, go now, be in peace, and may the Lord grant you what it is that you're praying. May he give you a child. 1 Samuel 1, 27 and 28. I prayed for this child, and the Lord has granted me what I had asked him. See, Hannah went back home, and she had a child. And she says, he granted me what I had asked him. So now I give him to the Lord. For his whole life, he will be given over to the Lord. He will worship the Lord there. See, she didn't just do a baby dedication. You know, in our church, we don't have baby baptisms. We have baby dedications when people bring their child up and they say that really the parents are saying, I'm going to raise this child in the way of the Lord. But what she is saying is that I am going to turn him over completely to the Lord. So that is exactly what she does. There's four things. There are four types of words that you and I need to share with the people in our lives that God has put in our lives. And before we do that, let's just pray for our message this morning. Lord, as we are here today hearing your word, and Lord, as we're distracted a little by the wind that's blowing, it's our prayer, Father, that first you would speak through me as I deliver this message, and I want to deliver it the way you want me to. And Father, I also pray that we would allow all distractions around us to be removed, and that your will and your voice would be completely heard. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, there are four types of words. Four types of words that we need to share with people of God who live around us. And here's the first one in your notes this morning, if you have that. They are words of discipline. Words of discipline. We don't like that, do we? Do we like words of discipline? We don't like to be people who give words of discipline. But God wants us to do that. You see, Eli, the priest that we're talking about in our story, has two sons, Hophni and Phinehas. And they're talked about in 1 Samuel chapter 2. We're going to look at that in a second. But he has these two sons that have grown up, and here's what the Bible says about it. 1 Samuel 2, verse 12. Eli's sons were, what's that word? Scoundrels. They had no regard for the Lord. I don't remember in the Bible someone else being called a scoundrel. I don't remember reading it anywhere else in God's word that these two had a reservation for that word, scoundrels. They were wicked, and they were abusive, and they were the sons of the priest, and they were abusing their roles because they were helping their dad, but what they were doing was sinning against God. They were taking more food. They were doing things that they shouldn't have done. It talks about it in the word here, and we're going to read more about this in 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 17. Here's what it says. This sin of the young men were very great in the Lord's sight. for they were treating the Lord's offering with contempt. They were eating the offering. They were taking more than they could. They were doing other things as well. They were how can I say it? They were messing with the women in the church. They were doing all of this stuff. And here's what you have to know about discipline. As much as we are not thrilled with discipline, here's what you should know. Bad behavior must be confronted early. Otherwise, it's going to grow worse. Bad behavior has to be confronted early in our lives, whilst it's going to grow worse. There's no secret that every one of us have disciplined someone or have been disciplined ourselves in our lives. Anyone here never been disciplined in their lives? Judy? No, not you. Okay. I thought you were raising your hand, Judy, when I said that. No. Listen, there's no secret that we are all sinners, right? And we're sinners by nature. And we need discipline in our lives, and we always do need that. And look, if we don't have that, how else do you and I learn that bad behavior comes with bad consequences? We have to know that. When that doesn't happen, you know what happens? In Phoenix, people break windows. That's what happens. They destroy police cars. They do all this stuff that you just go, you know what? You just need a spanking, young man. Don't get me started. Okay. So listen, we all know that was very bad behavior. And the truth of the matter is, look, if you don't agree with something, doing something else worse is not any better. All it does is make you look bad, and it closes you off to everything. So as parents, as grandparents, as aunts, as uncles, listen, people deserve, our kids deserve discipline. When I was a kid growing up, I'll have you know that my parents didn't believe in spankings. They just took things away from you. That was the discipline. Well, my dad had a rule, and his rule was dinner was at 5 o'clock. And so when it became 5 o'clock, you were sitting at the table, not coming in the front door, not calling up, I'm 5 minutes away. You were at the dinner table, and that was part of that was it. That was our time together. And then he would sit there, and he would say, hey, how was school today? What's going on with you guys? There was 5 of us, 5 brothers. So he'd say, what's going on with you guys? And you didn't want to say nothing. Do you know what I mean? You ever hear that phrase? You ask your kids, ask your grandkids, how are things going? What's going on with you? Nothing. That didn't work. You couldn't say nothing. So he did that because he wanted us to understand that somebody was watching over him. And when he disciplined us, this is the recommendation I have. This is from Pastor Andy, not from the Bible. But discipline should never be done out of anger or frustration. It should never be done publicly. But discipline should be treated like teachable moments. See, in our lives growing up, we learned that bad behavior comes with consequences, and good behavior comes with consequences. It doesn't mean that it's always negative, but listen, there's always a price in what you do. Proverbs 22:6 says this: up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. See, One of the words that we need to share with our kids and grandkids and nephews and nieces and young people is this word called discipline. See, a parent, here's a point in your notes. A parent who balances love and discipline without compromising is more likely to raise well-adjusted kids. Now, are they all going to be that way? Is that always going to happen that way? More likely that happens. Look at what it says in Luke 16:10. Luke 16:10. Whoever can be trusted with a little can be trusted with much. And whoever is dishonest with a little will be dishonest with much. Here's what we need to share. The first one is discipline. The second, number 2, second word is affirmation. Affirmation. Words are powerful, and they linger and last in our minds. I mean, when you hear it, when someone you look up to, someone you trust, says something to you, and you remember it for the rest of your life. God showed us the importance of this with his son Jesus. He showed it to us in Matthew 3:17. Matthew 3:17. Here's what happened. Jesus is being baptized. And here's what happens. And a voice from heaven said, "This is my son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased." You see, as children get older, they need a steady diet of affirmation. It doesn't mean you don't discipline, but it means they need to hear, "Good job." They need to hear things like, "I'm proud of you." They need to hear these things. When I'm the youngest of 5 boys. So my mom was a crazy lady. I'm the youngest of 5 boys. And my next oldest brother was 10 years older than me. So we had this gathering at our house, and I've told this story before, but some of you are new and you've never heard it before, so thanks for coming, because it opens me up to being able to tell it something more than once. So anyway, so we're in the house, and us boys, we're in the family room with my dad and all of their wives and girlfriends and stuff. I'm young then, I'm about 10 years old, and all of us boys are in the front room, the ladies are in the other room, and they're making the meal and doing that stuff. We're just there. And my third oldest brother, his name is Joe. Joe says this to my dad, "I don't think it's right. How does Andrew," that's me, "how does Andrew get away with everything he gets away with? We didn't get away with any of that stuff. He gets away with everything." And he looks at me. And I looked at him, and I says, "Well, I could answer that for you." He says, well, go ahead. I'd like to see you do it. You answer that. How come you get away with everything? I said, "It's easy. Mom loves me more." And he looked at me and he goes, "She doesn't love you more than she loves me or any of us other ones." No, she does. I'm telling you, and I can prove it. Now, my dad is sitting there, and he's like the cat that ate the mouse. You know what I mean? Like, he's looking at this, and he's going, "Oh, my goodness." So I go, watch this. I had this thing with my mom always where I'd say, "Mom, I love you," and she'd say, "I love you the most." This was our thing. So I said, "Watch this. Mom, yes, I love you." And she goes, "I love you most." And I looked at my brothers and I said, "That's it, I'm sorry." And my brother Joe goes, "Oh, that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean anything at all." He goes, watch this." So Joe goes, Mom. And she says, what, Joseph? He goes, I love you. And she says, I love you too. And I look at her, I look at them, I said, see, she loves you too, but she loves me the most. She loves me the most. I says, it's no secret. Look, Dad is sitting right there. He loves me the most too. And my dad goes, wait a minute, don't get me in the middle of this. But you know something? No matter, even when I was a grown person, a grown man, in my late 20s, early 30s, my mom was always saying, that's my baby boy, right? He's my baby. Now, you and I think, oh, that's kind of sweet and all of that. But when you're like 13 or 14 and you're with your buddies and she says, that's my baby, it just doesn't go over real well. Mom, don't do that. And then as you get older and then you find yourself, you're a grown man, you're married and everything else, and she'd say, Andrew, you're my baby. You're always going to be my baby no matter what. And you think, that's a little embarrassing. But can I tell you something? It's only embarrassing until she's not around anymore to say it. You see, words of affirmation are really powerful. And you can affect the people's lives around you just by, man, you're special. You're special. You know, it's okay to say, you drive me crazy sometimes, but you're special. And I love you more every day. You see, people need to hear that. People need to hear that you have someone and they trust you. That they would fight for you. That they believe in you. You see, you have to have people in your life that say, I'm proud of you. And if you don't have that, wherever you are, here's what you have to know. That if you're in Christ today, we are all proud of you. Because you have made a decision for eternity. A decision that is going to change the course of your life forever. And for that, you deserve praise. See, sometimes words, like words that are discipline, sometimes words that we come across, they're challenging. And they're things that make us feel a little uncomfortable. But sometimes words are things that are used to chart a course, to help us. Friends, listen, even in my life, even as a pastor now, I have people who come to me and they ask me questions. And I always, in the back of my mind, I've learned how to do this. I can tell you that you're really wrong and you'll smile at me because I know how to do it. You know, I've learned that there are ways to tell people the truth and not hurt them. And God is calling us to be people who help one another chart a course to where he wants to take us. And so now Eli in our story, he finds himself with his children growing up, and he was silent during this time. He didn't do anything to help them. He didn't do anything to straighten them out. In 1 Samuel chapter 2, verses 22 and 23, it says this. Now Eli, who was very old, heard about everything his sons were doing. Remember, they were scoundrels. To all of Israel, and how they slept with the women who served at the entrance at the tent of meeting. So he said to them, why do you do such things? I hear from the people about these wicked deeds you're doing. See, these are the sons of a priest. They're the sons of someone that they had been walking alongside their dad. And this woman is coming up. They come up to worship, and then they're being pulled off to the side, and these two guys are sleeping with these women. See, his son did not listen to their father's rebuke. Their dad told them what they needed to do and what they needed to stop doing, but they didn't do it. Eli's ministry captured more of his attention than his children did. That is a very tough lesson. It's not about ministry either. It can be, but it can be in the business world. Friends, when I was in the business world, I had one of our top sales guys who worked for me came to me. He didn't really come to me. He came into work and he looked terrible. He was in a bad mood and he wasn't acting right. I called him in the office and I said, "What is going on?" He looked at me and he said, "My daughter just became a nurse and I missed her graduation." I said, "You missed her graduation? How come?" He says, "Because I had a sales call I've been working on and I couldn't miss it because it was going to be a big deal." His wife had it because this had happened the first time he bugged out on his responsibilities. And his wife was going to leave him. And he said to me, "You know, it's really funny, Andy." He says, "It seems like yesterday I was just taking my daughter to kindergarten and dropping her off there. And now she's graduating as a nurse. Where did her life go? Where did my life go?" You see, I looked at him and I said, "Can I tell you something? This was one of those discipline moments. This was one of those moments when you have to say something you don't want to say." And I looked at him and I said, "You know," I said, "Larry, if you knew what your kids really wanted, you'd have been there. Because really what they want is not all the things you didn't have. What they really want is you. What they really wanted was to see Dad act like a nut at a graduation." It doesn't have to be something that is with your child. I have to tell you that I told him that, and I saw a man that was about 6'4", 300 pounds, big football player kind of guy, cry. He cried. He went home and he told his wife and his kids that his life was never going to be the same, that he was changing. Well, that Sunday came up, and he got up and he says, "Hey, we're going to church." "What?" "We're going to church. We're all going to church." And everybody got up and everybody went to church together. He came back into work and he says, "You know, I'm having a talk with my wife and she's not leaving. She's staying." And he says, "We went to church." And he says, "My life is never going to be the same." Friends, listen. I don't know if this is touching anybody. I don't know if you're getting anything out of this. I am getting stuff out of this. See, here's what you need to know, that we need to be people who discipline. We need to be people who speak words of affirmation. And we need to be people who keep things in proper perspective. Look at what it says in Psalms 127, verses 4 and 5. It says, "Like an arrow in the hand of a warrior are children born in one's youth. Blessing is the man whose quiver is full of them. King David told this, and he was comparing a child to an arrow. Well, what he was saying is that this arrow, for it to fulfill its true purpose, what has to happen? What has to happen to an arrow? First, it has to be straightened. An arrow has to be straightened out, right? It has to have a purpose. And when you're doing this, here's what you have to know. It's a point in your nose. For an arrow to serve its purpose, it must be straightened, sharpened, aimed, and released. And released. Friends, when you are showing affirmation, when you are showing discipline to young people, and I don't care if it's your own children, if it's anyone, what you're doing is getting things straight. You're sharpening them. You're helping them for the future. Look, kids today, parents today, they want to be friends with their children. I want to be their friend. And here's what you should know. They have friends. They don't need friends. They need grandma and grandpa. They need aunt or uncle. They need you to do what you're supposed to do. Because here's what we are all doing, whether they're our own or not. You're raising your children in order to release them. In order to release them. In order that they could go out and do what they need to do. Here is the fourth word. It's the last one that you and I, we need to speak in people's lives. Words that we need to share. It's the fourth one. And I'm not surprised it's really windy. Here's what it is. Words of spiritual life. Words of spiritual life. We need to speak these words. You see, we need to pave the way for our youth. We need to pave the way to Christ. So many people think, man, oh man, I'm going to heaven because my grandma was such a strong Christian, because my folks were strong Christians. And here's what you have to know. You can't save your children. You guys get that? Amen? Okay. You can't save your children. You see, our jobs are to move people to a place where they accept Christ on their own, where they have this relationship on their own. And although in our story, Eli's sons never had their own faith, there was someone else. His name was Samuel. And Samuel was listening to Eli. He was listening to every word. He was walking in Eli's ways. He was learning and learning about the Lord from him. Now, in 1 Samuel chapter 3, something happens, and it's really powerful. And we usually just read this thing and we're done. We don't even pay attention. It's really powerful. Here's what's happening. Right now, Samuel is about teenage age. Teenage age. I guess that's right. He's a teenager. And all of a sudden, one night, Samuel is about to fall asleep, and he hears Samuel. So he gets up and he goes and sees Eli, and he says, "Did you call me? Are you looking for me?" No, Eli says, "No, I didn't call you. Go back to bed." So he goes back to bed and he hears, "Samuel, Samuel." This happened 3 times. And on the 3rd time, he comes out. He goes, "Eli, are you calling me?" Eli says, "No, it's the Lord. It must be the Lord calling you." I want you to see something. because it's really important. Look at 1 Samuel 3, verses 8 through 10, because it tells the story here. It tells how it plays out. See, a third time the Lord called Samuel. Samuel got up and went to Eli and said, "Here I am. You called me." Then Eli realized that the Lord was the one calling the boy. So Eli told Samuel, "Go and lie down, and if he calls you, say, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening.'" So Samuel went, he laid down in his place. The Lord came and stood there. Can you imagine that? It says that the Lord came and stood there. He wasn't dreaming this. The Lord came and he stood there, calling as at the other, like the other times, "Samuel, Samuel." Then Samuel said, "Speak, for your servant is listening." Now I want to show you what it says in verse 11, but it's out of the Message Bible, because as I'm looking at all the different versions of the Bible, this is just so powerful the way this is, and it's so true for us today. It's in 1 Samuel 3, verse 11 through 14. Here's what it says. God said to Samuel, "Listen carefully. I'm getting ready to do something in Israel that is going to shake everyone up and get their attention." And then God continues. He says this, "The time has come for me to bring down on Eli's family everything I warned him of." Every last word of it. I'm letting him know that the time's up. I'm bringing judgment on his family for good. He knew what was going on, that his sons were desecrating God's name and God's place, and he did nothing to stop it. This is my sentence on the family of Eli. The evil of Eli's family can never be wiped out by sacrifice or offering. God shared this information to help Samuel become the godly leader God was calling him to. He was teaching his children. He was teaching him how to listen for God's voice, teaching him how to discern God's will, that God might want to shake something up. Friends, listen, when you do that with your grandkids, your nephews, your nieces, your this or that, when you're doing these things, here's what you're doing. You're preparing them to enter into a world where God may just be calling them to shake things up. That the person that you see as little Johnny or little Mary or whoever that would be, the person that you see, that little person may change the world around them if they allow God to work through them. First Samuel 3:1. Now Samuel, what does that say? I underlined it. Did not know the Lord. The word of the Lord had not yet been revealed to him. Well, wait a minute, that can't be right, can it? I mean, he grew up in Eli's house. He heard Eli preaching. He heard all of this. You know what this is saying? It's really important to get it, because this is true about people who are 6 years old and people who are 90 years old. Just because we know what God says, it doesn't mean we have a personal relationship with him. And God is calling us deeper. He's calling us to a personal relationship with him. You see, no one else can give you that. And even though Samuel had been hearing the word, that he knew it, he didn't know God completely. Here's a point in your notes. And this is an opportunity for anyone who's watching from home to fast forward it, because you might not like it, or change the channel. But here's what it is. Listen, religious activity doesn't automatically equal spiritual intimacy with God. Just because a person is active doesn't give them spiritual intimacy with God. If that were true, then God would be the God of works and not the God of a relationship with him. If it was true, Jesus, when he met the Pharisees, would have been commending them because they were people that were really active in doing religious things. But he wasn't. He wasn't commending them at all. He was disciplining them, and he was walking in that way. You see, accepting Christ is a decision that we make, and it's a place that we get to that leads us to eternity. So if you came or you grew up believing that the way to Christ is to get active, to be involved, hey, be involved, get active, we need your help. Always at church, there are things to do. There's plenty to do. But don't for 1 minute think that is going to give you an intimate relationship with God. Because the way I have that in my life is by praying, by seeking his word, by asking for wisdom, by asking the Holy Spirit to guide me. You see, none of those things have anything to do with being active and everything to do with being relational. John, it says this in 3 John 4. It says, I have no greater joy than to hear that my children are walking in the truth. God says, I have no greater joy than to know that my children are walking in the truth. Have you ever heard of a guy named Andy Stanley? Have you ever heard of Andy Stanley? Ever heard of Charles Stanley? This is Charles Stanley's son, who is also a pastor and preaches a huge church. Charles Stanley is the one with the suit. Andy Stanley is kind of like me, kind of like this. Here's what Andy Stanley says. Your greatest accomplishments may not be something you do, but someone you raise. You see, friends, this is not today about raising your own children. This is about speaking into the lives of young people and lives of each other, encouraging one another, sharing the truth, speaking the truth in love, encouraging one another. If we can do that, if we can do that as a people, here's what could happen. We have the ability to shape the course of history. We can shape our future by raising up people who are walking in the truth. Now, as I'm closing, I don't know how much time I have left. 1 minute and 20 seconds. I'm going to talk really fast. As I'm closing, here's the deal. Instead of us, and I think this is good too, but instead of us being people praying for safety of God, why don't we begin as a congregation praying that we walk in the power of God in our lives? That we certainly look for God's safety, but I want to walk in his power. I want to walk in God's strength. You see, God is calling you to change lives. And you can do that just by speaking his truth. Friends, in this first message, you have to know your words matter. And next week, you really don't want to miss next week's, because it's going to be really good. I can't wait to see it after I write it. but it's going to be really good because it's going to be about, we're going to go deep. We're going to go deeper. So keep being a part of this series. Maybe you're watching and you've never asked Jesus to be the Lord of your life. Well, we never want to leave a service without giving you that opportunity. So will you pray with me right now? Those of you who have already accepted Christ, will you pray with me as well? Let's pray. Repeat after me. Dear Lord Jesus, come into my life. Forgive me of my sins. I repent of my sins. I accept you now as my personal Lord and Savior. In Jesus' name.